Welcome to the Indigo Bone Podcast. This is our second episode, and I'm here with Diana and Saida, and our special guest today, which is Blaise Harris. Blaise is a mental health therapist that I encountered on TikTok. I have followed his content. I have been uplifted. I have enjoyed him. He is a family man. He's a father. He's a community builder. And come to find out, he is also just a little bit woo-woo like the rest of us and has had some stories and some encounters and experiences that he wants to share with us today because the theme of the podcast is about exploring the supernatural. So I'm going to turn it over to Blaise, let him kind of tell you more about what he does. And then we want to hear, this is our first time hearing this whatever he's going to share. So We're all going to hear it for the first time together, and we are excited. Blaise, take it away.
No pressure at all, right?
None.
It was like none, not even a little bit. So thank you. My name is Blaise Harris. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I have been practicing for over 7 years now. I'm the owner of my own practice, a G Square Consulting and Counseling Services, while also working for another group practice. I do a lot in the community as far as men's groups, and I get, men of color together to express what's going on with them. We might work out every now and again. I volunteer my time a lot when it comes to that. And I want people to be better. I want people to be healthy. I want people to be happy. And I want them to do it in a way that makes sense to them. I was a first responder before I was a therapist. So helping people has always been something that I really want to do. And I've always had a spiritual part of me, but really didn't know how to access it or really exactly what it was. I joke, but it's not a joke. We grew up in a haunted house. When the house that we lived in growing up, there was a lot of things that happened there. It was the person who owned the house. I think he died in that house. My great-grandfather died in that house. I had an aunt who was killed in that house, and there was a lot of things going around during that time. A lot of stuff when I was younger, I didn't really access. I just had stories about them and what they were told. There were times where they would, it's like the same story from person to person, and just sitting here listening to it, I was just like, wow, so this really happened. For instance, where there was a time where my aunt was killed, and her son, who's like my brother, he's my cousin, but he's like my brother. And he would take his shoes off on all different parts of the room, and she would always pick them up and put them beside each other. So after she had passed, they were all sitting around, and he did like he always do, take one shoe off on the other space. The shoe that was over here jumped to where the other shoe was. So that's one of the stories that's been told. There was another time where, we had it was an old house, old like plantation type house, and we had pictures on a mantle. And one day they were sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden all the pictures just went and just fell off of the mantle at one time, kind of like a domino effect. My experience with that house happened when I was older, that I actually remember. I was about 16, and we took some of our friends, my cousin who's older took me, my other cousin whose mom, was gone, and a friend of ours nobody lived in the house. So we took them to see it, but you could still see it from the road to get up there. We pulled up to the house, and you could always feel something was eerie. When we pulled up, the curtain did like this, like somebody's peeking out of it, and then went back. And then it's just like, yo, it's time to go. Another time was, it's one of those places where, there weren't any stoplights there, and you had to go like you had the main house, then you had to go outside to get to the kitchen and to the dining room. And when you looked out the back, pitch black. So it was one of those things. We never went to the bathroom. We would always be off the porch because we didn't want to go to the bathroom because it was scary, you know.
Right.
So, but another incident that happened was, you know, we still had things in that house from years later, like an armoire. And my aunt wanted to go get the armoire because it was ours.
Mm.
Again, the house is padlocked, except for the kitchen. You can get into the kitchen. You can't get into the main house. My cousin kicked the door. Why did something upstairs move when we were downstairs? Ain't no amount of force. No amount of force from a door, from a kick to the door is gonna make something upstairs fall and move.
Yes.
So that was my introduction into it.
Mm-hmm.
Then personally, and this is something that I've learned recently about myself, I'm clairaudient and clairsentient.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I don't want to assume that everybody knows. Well, I'm going to break it down. Like clairaudient, I can hear folks who are no longer here.
Yeah.
And clairsentient is I feel the energy when I walk into the room of other people. That's all. I've always been empathetic. I've always been able to feel that when I come in. But I just thought that was because, I care about people so much. So I have always experienced that. So doing some studying and doing my own little research about it, I never really recognized what it was until I started talking to people who were more spiritual along this trail. So I had an uncle who died in 2005. Okay. And he was like a father to all of us. So a couple of years after he died, I'm asleep and he comes to visit me in my dream. And I'm like, I don't think anything of it. I think it's just like a dream. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I don't mention anything about it. I don't think anything about it. I was like, oh, that was just a dream. Ain't nothing really going on about it. A couple of nights later, he came to me. He was like, hey, don't worry. I'm okay. You know, let everybody know that I'm okay. They don't have to cry. They don't have to feel bad. I'm okay. And I was like, oh, because he was our heart. He would take care of everybody. And that's kind of like what we would do. We would look after everybody else. Like the men in the family would try to emulate our Uncle Tom. You know what I'm saying? Because that was the guy that he was.
Yeah.
A few years later, my great grandmother, you know, she's in hospice with cancer. And she had 17 kids, a host of grandchildren, a host of great grandchildren. And of course, all of us are going to be there for her. And I thought to myself, she's waiting for one of us not to stay with her so she can go. She's staying on for all of us. So all of us I went home that night. And again, she came to me in a dream. And she would wear, I don't know if y'all have grandmothers who used to wear like the bandanas because they worked in the fields, doing tobacco and all of that type of stuff. She had on a teal, I remember she would always wear this. She had on a teal bandana that was over her head, a teal, white, and green striped shirt, and some teal pants. And she would just dance. And like this, like I would always see her dancing. And she was like, Blaise, I'm okay. Tell them not to worry about me. I'm not in pain anymore. That morning, my uncle called me and said, she's gone. And I was like, I cried for like 5 minutes and I was like, okay, it's time to get to work. Because there's 17 of them. They're going to be worrying about trying to get the funeral right and doing all this type of stuff. And it's like at least 100 of us who can do all the other stuff. And that's what we did. I didn't think people would believe me if I told them.
Right.
And then I told one of my aunts, and I was like, hey, so is it weird that Mama T came to see me the night she died? And she was like, no, that happens to me a lot too. I was like, ooh. I was like, ooh. And it's just like, I'm sorry.
So that's
I know.
something that runs in your family, I guess.
I think so. But I think a lot of people don't. I think some more of us are talking about it more. I I have a cousin. She's I think she's 5 years older than me, and a cousin that's like 5 to 10 years younger than me, and they are on the spiritual side as well. They're starting to learn more about that and trying to learn more about our background and what like the metaphysical world and all of that type of stuff, and seeing what's going on with that, and just exploring our spirituality that much more. Using being sure that we saved our homes, and being sure that we're safe, and being sure that we clear out negative energy and not being around certain people and all of that type of stuff, because they're energy vampires out here. People will really literally suck that out of you if you allow them to. And being sure that you have your shields in place and protecting yourself to be sure that you are okay when you walk in certain spaces, so your energy is protected. And it's one of those things. Is like, I didn't really understand it until I started going. Like, it's a shop around my area that I would go to, and I remember walking in, and the seer, she was like, there's a really big man that's right there beside you. He's looking at you. He's like standing over you, being sure that you're protected.
Wow.
And it was my Uncle Tom.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was another time, after my brother was killed, it was a lot of hurt and anger and stuff surrounding that, and what I wanted to deal with him.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that coming. I didn't, but I felt so much anger and rage, which is so not like me. That's not my character. That's not my demeanor. And again, in a dream, he's coming to me. It's like, there's so much chaos in this dream that I get out of the space, and he's running to me with my niece. But as he's running to me, he's fading away, and he hands my niece over to me, and he's almost gone. But he looks at me and he winks and smiles. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, what does this mean? And it's like, he trusts me with the most precious parts of him. And it's I learned how to lean, and I learned not to run away from that stuff, but actually lean into it a little bit more by learning how to meditate. And so when I meditate, I talk to spirit, I talk to my ancestors, I talk to my guides, and what is it that what do I need to hear today? And a lot of times when I'm meditating, that's when my brother comes to me. That's when some of my aunts come to me. That's when some of my, some people who I haven't heard from in so long come to me and start talking to me like they're right there. And when they give me a message to pass along, I don't ask questions. I just pass it along to the people that they tell me to pass it along to. And when I tell them that, they're like, shit. How did you know? Or that's exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And I was like, yo, your mom told me to tell you, or your uncle told me to tell you, or your husband told me to tell you, or my brother told me to tell you. And then it's just like, it's just like, I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I received the message. I'm just the messenger. And that's what I do. And it's never any, well, you're crazy or you're dumb, because like from the mental health perspective, if we hear voices, and that's a sign that you are experiencing this type of thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, okay. So, but when I think about that, I'm like, yo, okay, so the DSM-5 was written by cisgender heterosexual white men.
There you go.
It's not taking into consideration race, spirituality, religious belief, background, sexual orientation, any of that type of stuff. None of that stuff is considered. We have evolved and come so much further than what those diagnoses and stuff look like. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Some not recognizing the importance of people's spiritual backgrounds and how that has an effect on them and how they show up in the world. Now, if you're coming up and people are telling you to do this and cause kind of harm or doing all of that type of stuff, that's different.
Right.
You know, if you're a danger to yourself and you're a danger to other people, absolutely. That's something I'm going to be sure that I diagnose you and talk to you about and see what's going on. But at the same time, people don't question when God gives them a message. So technically, if God or Buddha or Allah or whoever you believe in, whatever deity you believe in, they send you a message. Nobody tells you that you're crazy if you talk to them. So what makes me crazy if I speak to my spiritual ancestors?
Right.
And could we even consider a world where mental health issues like this, like hearing voices and stuff, doesn't exist, but it's just like being in contact with the spiritual world?
We definitely could. However, some people aren't that open-minded when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to minimize their thought, their logic, because I believe something different. Just like I hope that they wouldn't do the same thing to me.
Yeah.
You know, but it's kind of hard when I'm sitting in a session and somebody's grandma tell me to tell them to sing this certain song that has a resonance for them. And I have no idea because they've never mentioned the song or anything about it, but their grandma's like, hey, tell them to do this. Hey, tell them to do that. And I'm like, and it like hits like really hard. Like, how did you know?
Yeah.
Just intuition.
Yes.
You know, so I do a good job. Like I try to shield myself when I go on the sessions.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you shield yourself?
So why I shield myself is when I sit down and when I'm meditating, I visualize energy coming from the earth coming through my body and going shooting out the top of my head and going around and surrounding me. And so my shield looks like y'all like the Zulu warriors with the shield, the big long shields and the spears.
Yes.
That's what my shields look like. You know, and I try to put myself up like that when I go into it. Now, sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
And that's when they come on through. And it's like, hey, I'm right here. I need you to pay attention to me. And it's like when they really want to get my attention, they'll send a chill like down my neck. Now, the chill when it comes down, it's like I shiver. But if like this shit that goes down my back. Now I know my protective figure is there when it's like kind of like a feather going across my neck, you know, and I'm able to tell the difference between the two.
How long did it take for you to get here as far as developing, like from the time you started to really embrace your natural gifts? Like, because it's a process, right? Like it's sort of like I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, this is amazing because there's so much resonance for me in what you're saying. So like, yeah, how like I'm sort of interested in like how long did it take and who did you talk to, like, because also you're a man and
Yeah.
you know that's the important piece of this conversation because like this space is not, you know, it's a lot easier, I think, for me, from my experience as a woman, to be able to talk to other women about my spirituality. And so I'm just very curious about that. And I hope my question makes sense.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. For me, it took me, I probably say like 2 or 3 years to really like get to this place because I really didn't understand it. And I'm still learning, you know, I'm still learning, you know, right now. I don't know nearly as much as I wish I knew when it came to this. You know, I recognize though that there's something different about me and how I show up. I notice how like what I'm drawn to, you know, in certain places. And this is like, I was doing things and I didn't even know that this is what it was. Like I went to the mind body spirit exhibit at the campground, at the fairgrounds earlier in the year. But our first time going was last year, and I was getting some, like some stuff for grounding and everything like this, and I didn't recognize that if I lay forward to it, I'm drawn to it. If I believe away for it, it's like it's not for me. I didn't even recognize that that's what I was doing it, and somebody pointed it out to me while I was there. It's like, hey, you do recognize that you're already doing this. It's like you're pulling this, and I was like, oh, really? That's what that means? And it's like I didn't recognize that was a thing. And whenever, it's so weird when you go somewhere and people start telling you their life story, and or I just thought this is because I'm a friendly person and I feel, they feel like safe approaching me. It's like, how would they know that I'm a safe person if they don't feel that coming from me? If I go to get, one of the things when I went to a tarot, I went and did some tarot with these people. It was just like, as soon as I sat down, she said, "You have really good energy. I love that." And I was like, huh. And I wanted to learn more about that, what that looks like. Even when I was getting a Reiki session, the Reiki master was telling me, she was just like, "You have good energy." And she started, I didn't know about chakras and all of that and everything. I didn't know about all of that. And she was like, "Your throat chakra is blocked." And I was like, huh, what's that mean? And it's just like you don't say what you really want to say. It's like you're afraid of how it's going to be perceived, or how it's going to be received if you say it. And she was like, Are you courting somebody right now?" And she really used courting. And I was like, yeah. This was 2 years ago. Yeah. She's like, "She's not the one for you." What's really weird is the day before, I went to a moon ceremony, and the seer who was there, she was like, "The person that you're interested in, she's not for you. She knows that you're special, and she's going to try to use that." And I'm sitting there, it's like, okay, so it's got to be some truth to this stuff then, because there's two people who don't know each other telling me the same thing.
Right.
Something ain't right. And so I started looking and started digging down deeper into it, and I started going to the shop a little bit more often. And it was one of those things where it's like I felt comfortable being around those folk, and they are showing me a different part of me and what it looks like and how I can show up in this world. But also encouraging me to explore the gifts that I do have.
Do you ever get scared when you get into contact with like dead people or spirits or?
Not very often. I'm super mindful of my shields being in place when I'm being intentional with it. There was one time I was like, "I don't know who that is. Keep them out." And they was like, "Okay." And like they stayed out. But I also recognize when it's just like, maybe I shouldn't go down that road. Or maybe I shouldn't go talk to that person. Or maybe that person don't got my best interest at heart.
Sounds like you trust your body's cues, which I think is just amazing. Yeah.
I can't lie to you, Diana. It took a lot of work to start trusting it. Because it's like, it's like, what is that I'm feeling? Then is it okay for me to feel that? And it's just like, my thing was, I was a people pleaser for so long. And a lot of times you say when you meet somebody, "Oh, you want to feel the butterflies and you want to feel all that." It's like, no, you don't. That's anxiety.
Right.
You ain't supposed to feel that. You're supposed to feel calm. You're supposed to feel your nervous system slow down and all of that type of stuff. You're not supposed to be thinking 100 miles an hour when you're talking to certain people and dealing with that. You're not supposed to feel that going through. It's supposed to be like nice and
Have
stable
you have you given consideration to sometimes that you may be feeling their energy, right?
all the time.
Yeah, so I recently, not too recently, I started to see the connection because when you read about this stuff, when you're getting into the spiritual stuff, and then it's the putting it in practice. I noticed that when I'm at my baseline, it's a lot easier to tell when someone else is bringing a little bit more of that nervousness or something else. So yeah,
Mhm.
I like anyway. Continue.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I feel that a lot. And I'm just like, man, it's like, especially if I'm doing it really happens to me when I'm doing presentations. When I'm like, I remember an instance in particular. I was doing a presentation at a hospital on first responders and mental health. And while I'm doing my presentation, like my heart started beating like super fast. And it's just like I was sitting there, I was just like, I don't know who's feeling it right now, but somebody is having a really tough time about this subject because it's hitting really hard for them. I don't know who it is, but if you want to come talk to me afterwards. I got an email from a person that was me because you used to work with my husband, and my husband is really struggling right now, and I know that you can understand what's going on with him.
Aw.
And it's just like I was like, man. So it's like it's those things that really pop up. Even when I go to retreats, it's like somebody's energy is off, and it's like I can't pinpoint who it is, but it's like it's really really heavy because I know it's not mine.
Yeah.
It's like I might be irritated because this is boring, but that's an irritated energy is way different than a just like your heart's beating 100 miles a damn hour and you feel some kind of way because what this person is saying to you is resonating with you in a way that you didn't expect for it to resonate. So
That makes so much sense. I want to back up a little bit and talk about this process that your induction into, you know, what we would deem psychic mediumship. I mean, that's kind of the broader term that is used for what you experience, and not that that's only mediumship, because it sounds like to me that you definitely tune into the living and those who have gone on before us. But the way that you were brought into it through this, and I'm going to use maybe, this term, but to me, this is what I heard. It was as if this house that you were exposed to externally was very much some kind of portal. And how it became a portal, how it became a place where energy would emerge to the point that we would be able to see it in a 3D. Because it's one thing to feel chills, which is very much, an evidential thing. I'm feeling something. I've had chills ever since you started talking. This whole story, all of these stories. And just as a side note, I love how the universe will take something like as broad as TikTok, and that I came across you so long ago. I mean, I think it's been at least a year. And well, we never had any in-depth conversation. I've seen your content. I've never heard you talk about any of this online. And you reached out to me and responded to my post, and I was like, oh, cool. Okay. Blaise has something to share with us. Well, that's going to be fun. But not realizing that all through this, that you have this depth of personal experience, family experience. You've hit so many points about the way in which the spirit realm engages with humanity, and how it can come through a family, and it can come through a house, and it can come through, and this really struck me, these personal, deeply personal experiences of these losses in your family. And also how you've stepped from this emulating this uncle that you lost who is watching over you into becoming that uncle. in a very real way through the loss of your brother and the dream that you had. And so as all these pieces that you're putting together for us, and I was going to ask, it was like every time I had a question that came to our mind, you answered it about the mental health piece and how someone who, I've been in therapy for about 6 years. I have a lot of background with family members and friends who have gone through the mental health process. And then my therapist and I talk continuously about the interface between the spiritual work that I do and the healing work that I do and the healing work that she does, and how those things that we need both, and we need both sides of that. But we need practitioners who are cognizant, who are not judgmental, and even if they don't have your depth of experience, who will sit back and allow for that to be part of someone else's experience. Because that, to me, this bridge that you have, that's you. That's literally, you are embodying this bridge energy. You're a bridge for your family. You're a bridge to those who have gone before, or for others, to reach their loved ones who have died. You're a bridge between the mental health world and the mental health field and spiritual practitioner. You're a bridge as far as diversity, where you are so committed to your community and to I love the handle that you use, the dope Black therapist. And we talk about this in our group here, how important diversity, equity, inclusion is, especially in this time that we live in. And representation matters. It's one of the things I know Diana can speak to. She has talked a lot about, when she first came into the spiritual space with astrology, not seeing a lot of other people that look like her, and how deeply important that is in the Black community. So for people of color and of all colors, and so I'm so impressed. And I don't mean that in an egoic way. I'm so impressed that this is literally, to me, this conversation is such an example of the supernatural, because this is supernatural to me, that we met you, and that we have this opportunity to talk with you today and hear these stories. It's so deeply moving. I don't have anywhere near that breadth of experience with mediumship, but I do know that as I lost a couple of very, very close loved ones in 2021, my world really shifted as it pertained to how I relate to those who are on the other side, and my sensitivity. And it wasn't just for myself. It started to become, on a much smaller scale, but these little bits and pieces that would come through. And so hearing you talk, the only other thing I did want to mention before I get off my monologue is to just acknowledge, and if you want to speak to this a little bit more, feel free, the amount of work. So you had the external induction, right? Because you were exposed through this house, through these experiences. But then there has been this internal journey that you have gone on to expand yourself to a place, not just this mental knowledge or having other people teach you, but and I don't have any other better way to put this, it's a pathway that involves a tremendous amount of personal sacrifice, and it involves a lot of pain. It involves facing your own pain, facing your own shadows. It also involves experiencing a lot of external pain. And I've never met anyone in my life who has walked a path where they become expanded in the way that you have, and there hasn't been a backstory of really difficult, tremendous challenges and suffering. And so I just want to say today that first of all, we acknowledge and are grateful that you as a man have come and stood in that place of authority as a spiritual man who is representative of the type of men that we want to see raised up in the world today. Healers who are compassionate and empathetic, who are in touch with both sides. And so we as us three women here, we receive and accept you there. And I also want to acknowledge that you, in your culture, have stood up as a leader, and how powerful that is in the day and age that we live in. to be a representative and to stand for your community, and how what that costs you on both sides of the line. And then I just want to say, we look forward to, if you've already had all these encounters, how many more people that you can help, how many more lives that you can touch, because it's like seeing a plane on a runway, Blaise, and there's a lot of speed, but when that plane takes off and really gets to that coasting level, it's a whole other thing. And I just feel like you've got tremendous, beautiful momentum, but I know that along the way, and that's where I wanted to stop and let you just kind of respond. Along the way, there's been a lot of things that could have not only derailed you from being spiritual or being a medium or being, any of the other things, but derailed you completely in your life. And so I just want to say thank you for the process that you have allowed spirit to work in you, and for being willing and for yielding and getting to this point of healing so that you can be available to others.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. I think it could have easily gone a different way. I think it was me just actually being open to it. Instead, like I say, instead of running away from it, leaning into it.
Yeah.
And wanting to learn more. Somebody who was raised, Baptist, and folks are still in the church and all of this type of stuff. And it's just like, okay, just because I'm spiritual doesn't mean that I don't believe in like God or entity or whatever's going on to it. It's just I just look at it differently than you do. And it's just like would you consider that that God is using me to help spread the message that needs to be given to you at this time. So it's just like it is easy to say. It could be easy for people to like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Nah, I don't believe in that. What you're doing is blasphemous, and we're not gonna go along that route. And it's like, okay, that's cool. But I'm still gonna love you anyway. And if I get a message, I'm gonna give it to you anyway. So you could, if it resonates, take it. If it don't,
Yes, then leave it behind.
And let's leave it right there. So absolutely.
Oh, that's another way that you've been a bridge, because the three of us, Diana, Saida, and I, all come from some type of conservative, we've experienced conservative religious background in different ways. And so that's one of the conversations we had actually in our first episode, was talking about how we have integrated these things, and the receptivity versus sometimes a very much lack of receptivity. I mean, I'm going to use a church word. I was testifying to a young conservative evangelical guy who was asking me questions about fasting, and in my old, one of my previous lives that I've lived in this lifetime, but in my 20s, I did a lot of that. And so I was sharing some things with him, and I knew I was in a rocky place and it's some tough ground, because I said, any minute this is going to shift, especially when he realizes that I still think I'm loved. And I said these words. There's a song that it's a church song that's kind of in the last 5 years. And one of the first line is, I'll never be more loved than I am right now. And then he said, I wasn't holding you up, talking to the divine, talking to God. So there's nothing I can do to let you down. And I quoted that song to him. And I also talked to him a little bit about Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, how he goes on this journey to the other side of the world and then come back and realize that the treasure was there all along.
Great book.
That I was never separated, that I've never been separated. And so when I said that, his response was, it was so triggering. He said, shake him. Because I said, he said, I wish you would have found grace. And I said, perhaps I did. Perhaps I did find grace. I live in grace every day. And so his response was, I don't sense the Holy Spirit, and I don't think that you call Jesus master anymore. And I just ended it right there, because I knew that we couldn't really see eye to eye. So there are going to be those people, but then there are other people like my therapist, who is very much from a Christian background, still a Christian, and she and I have beautiful dialogue all the time. Of course, I know there's the professional side of that, but she's very receptive to my path and to understanding when I talk about, my background as a minister versus now when I'm, ministering through astrology, ministering through tarot, ministering through channeled messages, and how I don't see this big separation. In fact, what I see is a bridge, and that all of it, you know, as we all walk in love and in the light together, and not everyone chooses that path, and not all spirituality comes from that source. But if that is the case, the first time I had Reiki, I said, this is the same, and I used church words. This is the same Holy Spirit. I mean, I was weeping. I said, this is the same Holy Spirit. Go ahead.
I have to stop you because our time is up with Blaise, unfortunately.
Thank you. We got to hear from you again. We definitely need to hear.
Just let me know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just through your practices, like, you know, just because I think there are a lot of men who want to hear about this, and a lot of women too. Blaise, you're so special. Like, this is
Truly.
This was great.
Truly. Yeah, what a gift. Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna let you go on with your day. And we can we'll get back with you soon.
All right, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah.
I had no idea you guys I was like, I mean, that's a really broad thing to say you want to talk to somebody about the supernatural. And I said, homeboy is a psychic medium. If we had had more time, I would have been like, is anybody coming through? I mean,
we can save that for the next session.
While we have it here, do you sense anything?
But it was so much good stuff. I wanted to ask it. Like, I was like, I want you to take me through your protection routine. Let's talk about Let's talk about energy vampires as a counselor, and if there's anything that comes up for you. I want to hear more about how he meditates. I wanted to
for the fourth host.
Yeah, like it was wonderful. All of it.
Oh, good. And the fact that he is free enough to use his gift during sessions and he just kind of covers over it. I'm like,
that's also like, you have to have like a lot of confidence in the messages you're getting, because you're conveying it to somebody who you don't know is receptive to it. So you must have so much confidence in that the messages are really gonna resonate with the people you're talking
guys,
to.
if you watch his TikToks, he's the most calm teddy bear type dude. And I don't mean that to like, you know, say anything about his appearance, but this warm-hearted, you know, low key. I was like, as soon as he started the ghost stories, I was like, what? And then he went on with I said, oh my God, he was, you know, that's how most people, a true psychic medium, they are baptized into it either by another medium, or it'll be by like that. Their story will be like experiences that they've had, or it doesn't always start early in life though. I mean, there are people that doesn't happen to them until they're, you know, whatever age.
That was Blaise Harris, the dope black therapist on TikTok. And that's also his website. This conversation was awesome. We thank Blaise so much for being with us. And the next episode, we're going to be the three of us probably. But we're hoping that we getting Blaise again sometime soon. Yeah, see you next time.
See you next time.
See you next time.